It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, which is Jenny Harper from the Title IX office. Jenny?
Cool. Thank you. Morning, everyone. Can you all hear me okay with this mic? Okay, perfect. If anyone needs me to speak louder, let me know, and I'm happy to just basically start yelling through this. So my name is Jenny Harper. I am the Title IX investigator for San Jose State University, and I'm a part of the Title IX office. My supervisor, the Title IX officer, is Tracy Sugawa, and so the two of us make up the Title IX office. However, we do have a lot of partnerships with other departments on campus. So you'll hear some people saying that they're deputy Title IX coordinators, and so those are our affiliates or our partners in the other departments. So I'm going to quickly roll through what Title IX is and what is going to be covered under Title IX and how that's going to impact you all as TAs. Seeing as how you are all considered to be student employees, therefore you have some reporting protocols that are going to be really important that you all are aware of. Okay, so Title IX is something that has been around since 1972. It is a part of the Education Amendments of 1972, and this is basically the paragraph that has controlled Title IX for, 40, 50 years at this point. So it states that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Title IX was originally designed to enable gender equity in the classroom, so ensuring that girls and boys in elementary school, high school, middle schools, all were able to get access to tutors, attention from their teachers, and we weren't favoring boys over girls whenever they started going to school. Then, not too long after this became law, there were some lawsuits that also targeted gender equity in athletics, so making sure that your baseball team and your softball team have equal funding, or that the girls swimming team and the boys swimming team have equal access to the pool. So for a long time, Title IX has been affiliated or associated with gender equity in athletics, and it still absolutely is. However, in probably the past 10 years or so, we've seen kind of a new revitalization of Title IX, which now it has also been expanded out, so universities are very aware, or should be very aware, that it also prohibits sex and gender-based discrimination, which is going to include sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, dating, domestic violence, stalking, and then also under the CSU executive orders, which are the governing body of policies that the CSU system uses, we've also explicitly said that sexual orientation is going to also be protected, as well as gender identity and expression. So Title IX, this little paragraph, actually covers a lot. Fortunately, our executive orders are far more robust than I think just literally this one sentence. So we have really seen a huge expansion as far as how the CSU system approaches Title IX. So these are some of the pieces that are covered under Title IX, and some of these definitions are pulled from our policies because the federal statute from the Education Amendments does not clearly break down what this is. So Title IX, through the CSU system, is going to prohibit sex and gender-based discrimination, so anything that is going to include sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, sexual harassment, so unwanted sexual conduct. There are two primary types of this. Quid pro quo, so that is going to be this for that. The stereotype that a lot of people hear is a professor saying that they will give a student an A if they do some type of sexual activity or go out on a date with them or whatever else the professor asks. So there's going to be some imbalance of power there, and usually it's going to be if you do this, then you'll get this in exchange. Or if you don't go on a date with me, or if you don't have sex with me, I'm going to fail you. So that is going to be your standard stereotypical quid pro quo. Then also hostile environment. So hostile environment can really be pretty varied as far as how it looks. In my experience of what we have seen here a lot is a student repeatedly asking out another person and somebody saying, hey, I'm not interested, and yet that student continues to send text messages complimenting their appearance and saying how pretty or how handsome they are, repeatedly asking them out on a date, saying, well, if you just give me a chance. maybe things will work out. And it's that continued harassment and those continued behaviors that even after somebody has said, stop, I'm not interested, please leave me alone, the behavior continues. And so what we'll oftentimes see, especially in classrooms, if this is happening between two students who are in a classroom or between, two student employees in one of our centers, between TAs, you might start to see somebody withdrawing from classroom activities. So they might not want to attend class anymore because they are really paranoid or scared or just feeling really uncomfortable because of this other person's behavior and they don't know what to do to make it stop. So if you're noticing that any of the students in your classes are kind of mysteriously starting to not attend class, it's good to check in and just see, like, hey, are you missing class because you don't want to attend or you have other work obligations, or are you not attending class because somebody in here is making you really uncomfortable? So as TAs, you're going to kind of be the eyes and the ears that are going to hopefully be able to monitor those situations. Also, sexual misconduct is prohibited. So that's going to include any type of sexual activity that does not have affirmative consent, can include cases that are involving an acquaintance as well as a stranger. By acquaintance, we pretty much mean anybody that is known to the survivor. So that is the vast majority of cases involve an acquaintance or a friend. And then it's also going to include rape, sexual battery, and sexual assault are the different types of kind of crime. Well, they're definitely crimes. We don't necessarily report to UPD whenever these come up, but those are the different types of prohibited conduct that are going to be included under this very broad sexual misconduct policy. Additionally, stalking is another prohibited conduct as well. Sometimes often goes hand in hand with the sexual harassment. So that's another thing to look out for as well, is do you see somebody engaging in repeated behaviors that would make somebody feel scared or fear for their safety or just suffer some type of substantial emotional distress. So once again, seeing a student's attendance in class suddenly kind of just drop off, that's something that could potentially be a red flag. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a Title IX issue, but it's something that we want to just check in and see what's going on with them. And then also, additional prohibited conduct also includes dating domestic violence as well as retaliation. So if somebody comes to our office and reports some type of Title IX issue, they have now officially exercised their rights under our executive orders, even if they don't do a formal investigation. So if somebody goes and retaliates against them because they've reported to us, depending on what the circumstances are, our office can also look into that as well and do what we can to mitigate the retaliation. So something like somebody gets kicked out of a student org, or they lose their job, or they get a failing grade because they reported a professor or they reported somebody else who is in charge of their grades. Those are all things that we will look for as well. And then lastly, something that's important for you all to know, because as TAs, you wear the fun hat of being both a student as well as also technically being an employee of the university. This last bullet point is really important for you all, where an employee shall not enter into a consensual relationship with a student or an employee over whom you exercise or influence direct or otherwise significant academic, administrative, supervisory, evaluative, counseling, or extracurricular authority. So if you are in charge of grading papers, please do not date a student in the class in which you are grading the papers. If by chance this relationship already exists, please notify your supervisor so that way we can make sure that we either have everyone separated, find a different assignment, or just figure out some other way that you're going to be able to navigate your role as an employee while also maintaining your relationships. I get that hormones are very strong. So also, if as the semester goes on, even if you don't have a relationship with someone now, but you do start to develop feelings, once again, please go and have an open and honest conversation with your supervisor so that way you don't end up in my office where we have to have the conversation around why you cannot date one of your students. Okay, so also because you wear the fun hat of being both a student and an employee, you also now are going to be required to follow our responsible employee requirements. A lot of people refer to this as a mandated reporter. Technically, that's something very different, but that's a term that you will hear whenever people are referring to as responsible employees. So, as an employee, when you are wearing your TA hat, so you have on your employee hat, any and all disclosures that you believe are going to be related to Title IX, so something that's related to that list that I quickly went through, you must report that to, I did not change director or AD, but you must report that to either your supervisor, so either the professor that you're working with, or if there's a different reporting protocol and they prefer for you to go up the levels and either look at talking to like a department chair, you want to make sure that you're reporting up. And then also you want to notify Tracy Sugawa, the Title IX officer, or you can also notify myself. So that is something that you are required to do. I have a handy little handout for everybody that you should all have that is kind of the general recommendations and guidelines for how you can handle these disclosures. Fortunately, I believe that most of you will probably not experience this, so hopefully you'll be able to get through the year without having to navigate a disclosure. But for those of you who do have to be on the receiving end of a disclosure, it's really, really critical that you let the student know who's talking to you, or if it's like another TA or another faculty member that's coming to you and disclosing this information, it's really important that you kind of gently stop them if you think that they're about to get into some pretty personal or serious information, and just let them know, hey, I'm here for you. I want you to be able to talk to me about this. However, if you are about to tell me something that's related to Title IX, depending on what you share with me, I'm going to have to report to the Title IX office, and I'm going to also have to report this to my supervisor. Do you feel comfortable continuing to tell me this information? If they do, cool. Let them talk to you. We ask that you not ask a ton of questions, because if you start asking a bunch of questions, there is a good chance that if this turns into an investigation, once my office reaches out to that student, you could now be a witness. And we don't want you guys to be a witness because you just ask too many questions up front. So it's really important that you kind of gather just the basic information. And also, if you're not sure what that student reported to you, if it is something protected under Title IX or prohibited under Title IX, still report to us anyways. And then let the Title IX office make the decision of whether or not this is something that is covered under our policies, and if it rises to the level of potentially needing an investigation. We can also do a lot of other support services or interim remedies without the investigation, but please let us be the ones who decide that and not you. And then also, we do have confidential support services that are also available. So, does everybody have this? Okay, so I just want to quickly point out a couple of pieces on here. So if you think a student or a fellow employee is going to disclose some potentially Title IX related information, the first two questions that we do want you to ask, in addition to, do you still feel comfortable talking to me even though I have to notify somebody of this conversation, is ask them, do they feel safe? Do we have safety concerns here? If there is any type of imminent danger, please notify UPD immediately. However, if there are other issues like they live with their partner and they're scared to go home, or we need to talk about like alternative housing options for them, that's something that you can also definitely notify UPD. And then also our advocate can help work with that. The Title IX office can work with it. We've helped numerous students relocate to a different dorm on campus. We've been able to find temporary housing for students who live off campus, and we're able to keep them here until we kind of figured out a next step. We can also help get them connected to the community resources as well. So checking for safety is really critical, because we want to make sure that person's going to be safe once they leave your office or wherever this conversation happens. Also, check and see if they need any type of medical attention. And if they do, you can always refer them to the Student Health Center. Depending on the severity of it, please also call dispatch if we need to get somebody transported to the hospital. More likely than not, given your roles and how you interface with students, I'm going to assume that you probably will not have to worry about that. However, there's still always the slight chance that you do. But for the most part, in our experiences with the disclosures and the reports that we've received from TAs, a lot of this just came up in a casual conversation around, why did you miss class? Or, hey, your grades haven't been so hot. What's going on lately? Also, you will get a lot of information via email. And then with an email, obviously you can't have the conversation of, hey, before you tell me information, I have to report you. So if you receive a disclosure via email, just please send back this an email to the student and just say, hey, I'm really grateful that you reached out to me, that you disclosed this information to me. I do have to report this, and notify the Title IX office. If and when a report does come to us, we will do a gentle outreach. So even if you have to notify Tracy or myself that somebody disclosed to you, all we're going to do is send that student an email. And it's up to that student or the faculty or staff member, because we also cover faculty and staff cases as well. We're going to basically put control it back into their hands, where they're going to be the ones who decide whether or not they want to respond to us. I'm not going to go knock on doors. I'm not going to go and constantly call somebody saying, hey, you have to come and talk to me. This notification is just there so that way they can get this email, let them know that there's people on this campus who want to get them connected, want to talk to them about their rights and their options. And if they're not in a place where they want to do that now, that's totally okay. If they want to come back to us in 6 months or a year or never, that's also totally fine as well. We're more than happy to work with them at any point, because there's no deadline for when somebody has to report to the Title IX office and work with us. So if students are concerned about that, you can always just let them know. You can ignore the email. It's fine. And then for the last couple little pieces, these are some of the support services that we offer here on campus. So the Survivor Advocate and Counseling Psychological Services are our 2 confidential resources on campus. So if a student wants to talk to somebody but does not want the Title IX office to be notified, they can talk to the advocate, or they can talk to one of the counselors. The advocate's office is located in Counseling Psychological Services, so it's an easy one-stop shop for all of your advocacy and mental health needs. Additionally, we do have a respondent consultant. So he works with the students who have been accused of committing some type of Title IX violation or engaging in some type of prohibited conduct. He is not a confidential resource. However, he is there to offer support to those students as they're going through a Title IX investigation. And then lastly, we do have the Student Health Center. So that's for medical needs, pregnancy testing, STI treatment. If somebody was sexually assaulted and wants to get a forensic exam, our health center does not offer that. They have to be referred over to one of the local hospitals. I believe it's Santa Clara County Valley Medical Center, I believe is the only hospital in Santa Clara County that currently offers that exam. And that's something that UPD can assist them with, or they're welcome to just call the hospital as well. And then lastly, we do provide these interim measures, so no contact orders, changes to housing assignment, changes to classroom schedules, academic accommodations. You might receive an email from Tracy or I, or from the advocate saying, hey, the student is going through some type of Title IX stuff right now. Can we, get some excused absences, maybe an extension on an assignment? Usually we're going to send that directly to the professor. However, I have had a couple professors then loop TAs back into that conversation. So that's something that we can also offer, and you might at some point get an email from one of us regarding this. Also, we can do employment accommodations, which will be useful for you in your TA situations. And then also sometimes we'll help students withdraw. And so the other piece to remember, since even though you are here for a TA training, you are still students. So not only are you responsible employees, and we want you to work with other students to get them connected to us, you also all have access to these same resources as well, because you're students here. So if something is going on in your personal life, or if something is going on with a friend of yours, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're more than happy to help offer you additional assistance. And then the last thing too, with the responsible employee hat, you are not a TA 24/7. So if somebody who is a close friend of yours is to report something on like a Saturday, you do not have to report that to us. But if you have a student or somebody who knows you because of your employee status, even if that's not happening in the classroom, that is when you're going to have to put that hat back on. So if you have questions or concerns about that, Tracy and I are more than happy to talk to you all. And then also I'll make sure that you have access to these slides as well as an electronic version of that handout. So with that, does anyone have any last minute questions before I pass it to the next person? If you think of anything else after, please email or call us. We are basically live here at this point, so we're more than happy to answer questions at any hour. All right, thank you all, and have a good semester.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks very much.